My neighbor told me he was doing me a favor by parking in my paid spot while I was at work. I live in a city where street parking is a literal nightmare. It's the kind of place where people leave broken lawn chairs and traffic cones in shoveled spaces during the winter, and if you move them, you might wake up with a brick through your windshield. Street sweeping happens twice a week, which means every Tuesday and Thursday morning, half the neighborhood is driving around in circles like vultures waiting for someone to leave for work. Having a deeded parking spot here is like owning a piece of gold. I pay an extra $200 a month for a specific, numbered spot right behind my apartment building. Spot number 14. It's nestled right up against a retaining wall, heavily shaded, and clearly marked with a metal sign bolted to the brick that says, "Private Parking. Unauthorized vehicles will be towed at owner's expense." For the last year, everything was fine. I paid my rent, I paid my parking premium, and I had the absolute luxury of coming home from a grueling 12-hour shift and pulling right into my spot. No circling, no stress. Just turn the wheel, park, and walk 30 seconds to my back door. Then a guy named Derek moved into the unit across the hall. I didn't think much of him at first. He was just another guy in his late 20s, always wearing a slim-fit puffer vest and carrying a gym bag. The hallway started smelling like heavy, expensive cologne the week he moved in. Derek is one of those guys who thinks rules are just suggestions for people who aren't as important as he is. You can spot the type from a mile away. They don't hold doors. They leave their trash bags sitting in the hallway instead of walking them down to the chute, and they look right through you when you pass them on the stairs. It started 2 weeks ago on a Tuesday. I'm an ER nurse. My shifts are 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. It is brutal, soul-sucking work on the best of days. You spend 12 hours on your feet dealing with trauma, bodily fluids, and people having the worst days of their lives. When you clock out, all you want is a hot shower and a dark room. I pulled into the alley behind my building at 7:45 a.m. It was pouring rain. Not a drizzle, but that freezing, relentless autumn rain that soaks through your jacket in 5 seconds. I turned the corner, my headlights washing over the cracked asphalt, fully expecting to see the empty space between the yellow lines of spot 14. Instead, there was a massive black GMC Yukon Denali parked dead center in my spot. I hit the brakes. I just sat there for a minute, the wipers slapping back and forth across my windshield. I couldn't comprehend it. There was a giant metal sign literally hovering over the roof of the SUV. I put my car in park and squinted through the rain, looking for a dashboard note. Hazard lights. Someone moving boxes. Nothing. It was completely dark, engine cold. I had to back out of the alley. I spent the next 40 minutes driving up and down the surrounding streets. Because it was Tuesday morning, street sweeping rules were in effect. There was absolutely nothing. I finally found a sliver of legal parking 4 blocks away. I grabbed my work bag and walked home. The rain was blowing sideways. By the time I got to my building, my scrubs were plastered to my legs. Water was squishing in my running shoes, and I was shivering uncontrollably. I walked past the alley. The Yukon was still there. I barely slept that day. I woke up around 4 p.m., made a coffee, and looked out my back window. The Yukon was gone. I chalked it up to an honest mistake. Maybe it was a visitor who didn't read the sign. The next morning, I got off shift, drove home, and the spot was empty. I parked, relieved. I was walking up the stairs to my floor when I heard a door open. Derek stepped out, locking his door behind him. He was tossing a set of keys in his hand, a heavy fob with the GMC logo on it. I stopped on the landing. "Hey man," I said, "are you the one driving the black Yukon?" He stopped, looked down at me from the step above, and popped out one of his AirPods. "Yeah, why?" I kept my tone, light, polite, but firm. "I just wanted to give you a heads up. That spot right by the wall, number 14, that's my deeded spot. I pay monthly for it. You parked there yesterday morning, and I had to park 4 blocks away in the rain. I just need you to not park there anymore." He didn't blink. He didn't apologize. He just looked at me, tapped his AirPod back into his ear, and said, "Yeah, sure bro, no problem." He squeezed past me and walked down the stairs. I stood there feeling a sudden, sharp spike of irritation. There was no, "I'm sorry," no, "I didn't realize," just a brush off. But I figured the message was delivered. He knew it was mine. It wouldn't happen again. I was wrong. The very next night, Thursday, I pulled into the alley at 7:30 a.m. The black Yukon was sitting right there in spot 14. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. It wasn't a mistake anymore. It was a choice. I backed out, found a street spot 2 blocks away, and walked home. I was too exhausted to fight, so I grabbed a Sharpie and a piece of printer paper from my apartment. I walked down to the alley and wrote in thick black letters, "This is a paid private spot. Do not park here again." I lifted his heavy wiper blade and pinned the note to his windshield. Friday morning, the car was there again. The note was gone, crumpled into a ball and tossed on the ground next to my retaining wall. I left another note, a less polite one. I told him he would be towed. On Saturday, I didn't work. I was coming back from picking up a pizza around 8 p.m. As I was walking down the hallway, Derek's door opened. He stepped out, carrying a garbage bag. He saw me, and I saw him. "Hey," I said, dropping the polite act entirely. "We need to talk about the parking spot." He sighed, like I was the one inconveniencing him. He dropped the garbage bag by his door frame. "Look, man," he started. "No, you look," I cut in. "I pay $200 a month for that spot. I told you it was mine. I left you 2 notes. I am tired of walking blocks away after a 12-hour shift because you're too lazy to find street parking. Move your truck and don't park there again." Derek laughed. It wasn't a nervous laugh. It was a deep, condescending chuckle. He actually took a step toward me and reached out, patting me heavily on the shoulder like I was a 10-year-old who had just dropped his ice cream cone. I stepped back, knocking his hand away. "Relax, bro," Derek said, his voice dripping with arrogance. "I know you work nights. I see you leave. The spot is just sitting empty all night anyway. You shouldn't be so selfish." I stared at him. "Selfish? I pay for it. It's my property." "Yeah, and I'm doing you a favor," he said smoothly, leaning against his doorframe. "If that spot sits empty all night, some random homeless guy or sketchy car is gonna pull in there and use it. I'm keeping it occupied. I'm keeping the spot warm for you. You're making a big deal out of literally nothing. I'm gone by 8:30 every morning anyway. I get home at 7:30, I said, my voice voice dead level. So grab a coffee and wait an hour. Derek shrugged. It's not a big deal. We're neighbors. Be neighborly. He picked up his garbage bag, turned his back on me, and walked toward the stairs. The audacity of this guy was incredible. It actually left me speechless for a few seconds. I went into my apartment, locked the door, and set my pizza on the counter. I pulled out my phone and found the number for the towing company listed on the metal sign above my spot. I dialed the number. A woman answered on the second ring. I explained the situation. I told her I had a trespasser in my paid spot and I needed a truck sent out immediately. Okay, honey, she said. Her voice sounded tired. Is it a private residential lot? Yes, it's an assigned spot. All right, are the police there? I frowned. No. Why would the police be here? It's my private spot. You guys have your sign on the wall. I know, honey, but city ordinance changed 6 months ago. We got sued too many times by people claiming predatory towing from residential lots. Now, we can't hook a car from a private apartment lot unless a police officer is present to run the VIN and verify your lease agreement and parking addendum. You have to call the non-emergency line, get an officer out there, show them your paperwork, and then have the officer dispatch us. I rubbed my eyes. Are you serious? It takes the cops 3 hours to respond to a noise complaint in this city. They aren't going to come out for a parking dispute. I know, she said sympathetically. It's a massive hassle. Most people don't bother with it, but my drivers won't touch it without a badge on site. Our hands are tied. I hung up the phone. I realized exactly what was happening. Derek knew. A guy like him, driving a $90,000 SUV with no regard for anyone else, he knew the loopholes. He knew the towing company wouldn't touch his truck. He knew I'd have to jump through massive bureaucratic hoops just to get my own property back. He was banking on me rolling over and giving up because the fight was too exhausting. Over the next week, he made it his mission to rub it in my face. Every time we passed in the lobby or the stairwell, he would flash this smug, tight-lipped smirk. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. To make matters worse, he started parking aggressively. The space next to mine is a concrete pillar. When he parked the Yukon, he started angling it deliberately over the yellow line on the driver's side. I own a small motorcycle, a Yamaha I use for quick trips in the summer. I used to be able to tuck it into the back corner of my spot, even if my car was there. By parking crooked, Derek made sure I couldn't even squeeze my bike in next to his truck without scraping his paint. He was actively trying to dominate the space. Last Friday was the final straw. It was my day off. The temperature had plummeted. The wind chill was in the single digits, and the sky was a flat, bruised gray. I spent the afternoon running errands and doing a massive grocery haul. I had 4 heavy bags from the supermarket: milk, cans, frozen chicken, a 12-pack of seltzer. The handles of the reusable bags were digging deep into my palms. I turned down the alley, my heater blasting in my car. There it was, the black Yukon, angled so sharply across the yellow line that his rear tire was sitting in the middle of my space. I hit the brakes. I looked up. My apartment building has small, wrought iron balconies on the back side. Derek's unit faces the alley. Derek was sitting on his balcony. He was wearing a heavy fleece jacket, his feet propped up on the railing. He had a glass bottle of beer in his hand. He was watching me. I rolled my window down. The freezing wind whipped into the car. Derek looked right at me. He didn't look away. He slowly raised his beer bottle in a mock toast. Then, he took his free hand, pointed at my car, and pointed back out toward the street. Go find a spot somewhere else. A strange calmness washed over me. I didn't honk my horn. I didn't yell out the window. I didn't give him the satisfaction of seeing me lose my temper. I just rolled my window up, put the car in reverse, and backed out of the alley. I drove around the corner and parked in a 15-minute loading zone in front of a dry cleaner. I pulled out my phone and dialed the police non-emergency line. Dispatch, a man answered. Hi, I need an officer dispatched to my residence, I said. My voice was steady. I have a trespasser on private property. He has a vehicle blocking my deeded parking space. He is refusing to leave, and I have the signed lease and deeded paperwork to prove the spot is mine. The towing company requires an officer on site to authorize the impound. The dispatcher clicked some keys. Is the situation hostile? Not physically, but he is actively mocking the situation from his balcony and refusing to move. I just need an officer to verify my lease so the tow truck can hook him. All right, it's a low priority call. Might be a bit of a wait. I'll put it in the queue. I'll be waiting, I said. I left my car in the loading zone. I grabbed my keys, walked back to my apartment, and let myself in. I grabbed my lease agreement from my filing cabinet. I pulled out the specific addendum that listed spot 14, and I printed out the last 3 months of bank statements showing the $200 transferred to the management company. I put it all in a clear plastic folder. Then, I went back downstairs and walked out into the freezing alley. Derek was still on his balcony. He saw me walking toward his truck. What are you doing? He yelled down. Get away from my car. I ignored him. I walked right up to the front bumper of the Yukon. While I waited for the cops, I decided to do a little bit of digging. If I was going to force this issue, I wanted every piece of ammunition I could get. I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight. I shined it on his front license plate. In this state, we have month and year registration stickers on the corners of the plates. I wiped some road grime off the bottom right corner with my thumb. The sticker said OCT 2024. It was currently April 2026. His registration tags were expired by over a year. I walked around to the driver's side. The windows were tinted jet black, not just a heavy factory tint. This was aftermarket limo-style tint. I put my face right up against the glass and cupped my hands around my eyes. I couldn't even see the outline of the steering wheel. State law dictates that front side windows must allow more than 70% of light in. This wasn't even letting 10% in. It was highly illegal. Hey, I told you to get away from my truck, Derek yelled. I could hear the sliding glass door scrape open on his balcony. He was agitated now. I stepped back, leaned against the brick retaining wall, and crossed my arms. I didn't say a word. I just waited. 20 minutes later, a white Ford Explorer patrol car rolled slowly down the alley. Its headlights cut through the gloom. It pulled up right behind Derek's Yukon and parked, the red and blue light bar flashing silently on the roof. I looked up at the balcony. Derek was gone. The sliding door was left wide open. An officer stepped out of the cruiser. He looked to be in his 40s. heavy-set, wearing a thick winter jacket over his uniform. He looked cold and annoyed. "You the caller?" he asked, walking toward me. "Yes, sir," I said. I handed him the clear plastic folder. "Here is my lease. Page 4 is the parking addendum. Spot 14. Here are the receipts proving my account is current. That vehicle does not belong to me, and the owner refuses to move it." The officer clicked on his tactical flashlight. He illuminated the paperwork, scanning the lines quickly. He checked my ID, matching the name. Before he could say anything, the heavy metal door at the back of the apartment building banged open. Derek came running out into the alley. He had thrown on his puffer vest, but he was wearing sweatpants and slippers. He looked a lot less smug now. His face was flushed, and he was breathing heavy. Officer, hey," Derek started, waving his hands. He walked right up to the cop, completely ignoring me. "This is a huge misunderstanding. We're neighbors. It's just a neighborly dispute." He's overreacting completely. The officer looked at Derek. "Is this your vehicle?" "Yeah, it's mine. Look, I was just leaving. I just ran inside to grab something. I told him I was moving it. He's been parked here since this morning," I said quietly. "He told me he was doing me a favor by taking my spot." "Shut up, bro," Derek snapped at me. He turned back to the cop, forcing a tight, friendly smile. "Look, man to man, he's just being petty. I'm moving it right now. We don't need to waste city resources on this." The officer didn't smile back. He looked down at the paperwork in his hand, then back up at Derek. "This is private property. The caller leases this specific spot. You don't have permission to be parked here." I know, Derek said, holding up his hands. "I'm moving it. Just let me get my keys." "Hold on," the officer said. The officer stepped away from us and walked slowly around the back of the Yukon. He shined his flashlight on the rear license plate. He stopped. He stared at the sticker. Then, he pulled his radio mic off his shoulder. "Dispatch, run a plate for me." He rattled off Derek's license plate number. Derek's confident posture suddenly collapsed. He shifted his weight from foot to foot. "Come on, man. Seriously?" The radio crackled. The dispatcher's voice came through loud and clear. "Plate returns to a 2023 GMC Yukon. Registration expired October 2024. No wants or warrants." The officer let go of the mic. He walked around to the driver's side door. He shined his flashlight directly onto the blacked-out window. The light just bounced right off it. He reached into one of his tactical pockets and pulled out a small rectangular device, a VLT meter, a light transmittance meter. He slid the meter over the top edge of the window glass where it met the seal. The digital display lit up immediately. 4%, the officer said aloud. He looked over the roof of the SUV at Derek. "Your registration is over a year expired, and your window tint is illegal. You're not driving this vehicle anywhere." Derek lost it. The friendly, neighborly act vanished in an instant. He took a step toward the officer, his voice raising to a shout. "Are you kidding me? You're harassing me over a parking spot. You have real crimes to fight, and you're out here messing with my tint? I know people. I play golf with Captain Miller at the 4th Precinct. You're making a massive mistake right now. This is a waste of taxpayer money." The officer's demeanor changed instantly. He went from a bored, cold cop doing a routine call to a stone-cold wall of authority. He unclipped his flashlight from his belt and pointed it squarely at Derek's chest. "Step back," the officer ordered. His voice was dangerously low. Derek stopped, but he didn't back up. "You're a joke, both of you. I'm calling Miller right now." He reached into his pocket for his phone. "You can call whoever you want," the officer said, "but you're not getting in this car. Since the vehicle is on private property, trespassing, and currently unregistered and uninsurable due to the expired tags, it is not road legal. And since you are acting combative, I am not giving you a warning to park it on the street. I am authorizing a full impound." Derek's jaw dropped. "You can't do that." "I just did," the officer said. He pulled his mic up again. "Dispatch, send a tow for an impound. Need a flatbed. Vehicle is AWD. Location is the alley behind." He read off the address. I stood leaning against the retaining wall, perfectly still. I couldn't feel the freezing wind anymore. Derek turned his fury on me. He took 2 fast steps in my direction, his face contorted with rage. "You miserable piece of shit," he screamed. The veins in his neck were bulging. "You think this is funny? You think you won? I am going to make your life a living hell. You have no idea what I'm going to do. You're a dead man. You hear me? A dead man." The officer moved immediately. He stepped between us, putting a heavy hand on Derek's chest and shoving him back forcefully. "Listen to me very carefully," the officer barked, his hand dropping toward his duty belt. "If you make one more threat toward this man, I am putting you in handcuffs right now for witness intimidation and communicating threats. You will spend the weekend in lockup. Do you understand me? Shut your mouth and step back." Derek looked at the officer's hand hovering near his belt. He looked at my face. He swallowed hard. The fight completely drained out of him, replaced by a sudden, humiliating panic. He backed up until his shoulders hit the brick wall of the building. He crossed his arms over his chest, shivering in his sweatpants, and stared at the ground. He didn't say another word. We waited in silence for 15 minutes. The only sound was the low idle of the police cruiser. Finally, the grinding roar of a heavy diesel engine echoed down the alley. A massive yellow flatbed tow truck backed slowly down the narrow lane. The amber lights rotated, casting flashing shadows across the brick walls and dumpsters. The tow truck driver hopped out, a burly guy in a high-vis jacket. The officer handed him a slip of paper. The driver nodded, walked to the back of his truck, and pulled the hydraulic levers. The bed tilted downward with a loud metallic screech. I watched as the driver ran the thick steel cables under the front chassis of the shiny black Yukon. I watched as the winch engaged, pulling the heavy SUV groaning and popping up onto the tilted steel bed. Derek just stood there, his teeth chattering in the cold, watching his $90,000 status symbol get dragged away like garbage. When the Yukon was secured, the tow driver gave the officer a thumbs up and climbed back into his cab. The truck pulled away, disappearing around the corner. The officer handed me back my plastic folder. "He shouldn't bother you anymore. If he does, call us back immediately." "Thank you, officer," I said. The cop got in his cruiser and drove away. Derek and I were left alone in the alley. The wind howled between the buildings. He looked at me, a look of pure, toxic hatred, but he didn't speak. He turned around, punched the heavy metal door open, and went inside. I walked back to my car, parked it in my beautiful, empty spot, and carried my groceries upstairs. The financial damage to Derek was catastrophic. I know this because I looked up the city ordinances later that night. The base impound fee in our city for an oversized SUV on a flatbed is $400. The city storage lot charges $50 a day, but they won't release the vehicle until it is legally registered. To get his registration current, Derek had to go to the DMV and pay the back taxes and penalties for the 18 months he missed. On top of that, the officer cited him for the illegal tint, which carried a mandatory $300 fine. But the best part was the mechanical catch. 2. The city lot won't let you drive an illegal car off their property. Because his tint was illegal, the car wasn't roadworthy. So, even after paying the impound fee, the storage fees, the registration taxes, and the fines, Derek wasn't allowed to just put his key in the ignition and drive home. He had to hire times and other times private flatbed tow truck to come to the city lot, load the Yukon, and transport it directly to an auto shop to have the illegal tint scraped off the windows before he could legally drive it again. All in, conservative math put his little parking adventure at roughly $1,500. He didn't take it well. The very next day, Saturday, at 10 a.m., my doorbell rang. I walked over and looked at the video feed on my phone from the doorbell camera. It was Derek. He was wearing his puffer vest again, looking furious. He pounded his fist against my door. "Open the door," he yelled through the wood. "I know you're in there. You owe me $800. I am not paying this whole thing. Open the door and face me." I didn't open the door. I didn't even walk closer to it. I just stood in my kitchen, opened the doorbell app on my phone, and accessed the saved video files from the night before. I have a camera mounted above my back door that points down into the alley. It had captured the entire interaction. I synced my phone to a portable Bluetooth speaker, turned the volume all the way up to max, and carried it to the front door. I set it on the floor right behind the door frame. I hit play. Derek's own voice boomed through the wooden door, loud and crystal clear. "I am going to make your life a living hell. You have no idea what I'm going to do. You're a dead man. You hear me? A dead man." I paused the audio. I leaned close to the door. "If you don't walk away from my door right now," I said loudly, "I am calling the exact same officer from last night, playing him that audio, and filing for an emergency restraining order. Leave." The silence in the hallway was absolute. I watched the camera feed on my phone. Derek stood there, staring at the peephole for about 10 seconds. The muscle in his jaw was twitching. Then, he turned around and walked back to his apartment. His door slammed shut. He avoided me completely after that. If he heard me in the hallway, he would wait until I left before coming out. 3 days later, I came home from my shift. There was a U-Haul parked illegally on the street out front. The door to Derek's apartment was propped open. 2 guys in moving company shirts were carrying out his leather sofa. I never saw him again. He broke his lease and moved out rather than live across the hall from the guy who cost him $1,500 and a piece of his pride. It's been months now. The weather has warmed up. Street parking is still a nightmare for everyone else in the city, but my life is simple. Every morning, I finish my brutal 12-hour shift at the hospital. I drive home, I turn into the alley, and I make sure to whistle a little tune every time I pull in and see that beautiful empty pavement shaded by the retaining wall, right there under the sign, just waiting for me. I honestly thought that was the end of it. When you watch a moving truck pull away with the belongings of someone who made your life miserable, your brain naturally closes the book on that chapter. I went back to my routine, work 12 hours, sleep, wake up, repeat. Spot 14 was always empty when I got home. The weather shifted into late spring, the kind of heavy, humid heat that makes the city smell like hot asphalt and garbage. 2 months went by without a single issue. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, I woke up to a yellow slip in my mailbox. It was a missed delivery notice from the post office for a certified letter. I had to sign for it. I didn't think much of it at first. I figured it was a medical license renewal or something from my apartment management company. I dragged myself out of bed, drank a lukewarm cup of coffee, and walked the 6 blocks to the post office. I stood in line for 20 minutes, behind a guy buying 50 books of stamps. When I finally got to the counter, I handed the clerk my yellow slip and my ID. She disappeared into the back and came out with a stiff white envelope. The return address was a generic P.O. box, but the stamp in the corner said Times County Civil Court. I stood outside on the sidewalk, the sun beating down on my neck, and tore the envelope open. It was a civil summons. I was being sued in small claims court. The plaintiff was Derek. He had tracked down my full legal name, probably from snooping on my mail or asking the property manager before he moved out. He was suing me for exactly $5,000, the maximum allowed in our state's small claims court. I leaned against the brick wall of the post office and read through his complaint. It was handwritten, filling up every line of the standard court form in tight, angry block letters. He claimed I had illegally and maliciously ordered the towing of his vehicle from a shared residential lot. He listed his actual damages: the $400 tow fee, the $50 a day storage fee, the $300 tint fine, and the $250 he had to pay a second tow company to move his truck to a mechanic. That was roughly the $1,500 I had estimated. The other $3,500? He was claiming intentional infliction of emotional distress, loss of wages because he didn't have his car for 3 days, and harassment. I didn't feel angry. I just felt an exhausted, bone-deep annoyance. A guy like Derek simply cannot accept that his actions have consequences. His ego was so fragile, so entirely shattered by being publicly put in his place, that he had spent the last 2 months stewing in his new apartment, convincing himself that he was the victim of a massive injustice. He wanted his money back, but more than that, he wanted to punish me. He wanted to drag me into a courtroom and force me to answer to him. The court date was set for a Thursday, 3 weeks away. It was my day off, which was the only silver lining. I didn't hire a lawyer. You don't need one for small claims, and frankly, I wasn't going to spend a dime defending myself against this nonsense. Instead, I spent my next evening off building an airtight file. I went back to the police station and requested the official incident report from the night of the tow. It cost me $5 and 10 minutes of waiting. I read it in my car. The responding officer had documented everything flawlessly. He noted the expired registration, the 4% 4% VLT reading on the window tint and explicitly stated that the vehicle was towed under his direct authorization because it was an unregistered, uninsurable vehicle trespassing on private property, and the owner was acting combative. I printed out my lease agreement again. I printed the bank statements. I took fresh, daytime photos of the metal warning sign bolted to the wall above spot 14. Finally, I took the doorbell camera footage of him threatening to make me a dead man, burned it onto a cheap USB thumb drive, and put it in a plastic baggie. I put everything into a manila envelope. I was ready. The morning of the hearing, it was pouring rain. The exact same freezing, sideways rain from the morning I first found his truck in my spot. It felt fitting. The county courthouse is a massive, brutalist concrete building downtown. It smells like floor wax, wet wool, and cheap coffee. You walk through metal detectors, take an elevator crammed with people in cheap suits and stressed out public defenders, and sit on hard wooden benches in a gallery that looks like a high school auditorium. I found my assigned courtroom and took a seat in the third row. 10 minutes later, Derek walked in. He was wearing a sharp, tailored navy blue suit, a crisp white shirt, and a red tie. His hair was slicked back. He looked like a guy stepping into a corporate boardroom to close $1 million deal, not a guy fighting over a parking spot. He saw me sitting there. He didn't smirk this time. He just gave me a cold, hard stare, walked to the complete opposite side of the gallery, and sat down. The judge was a woman in her late 50s with sharp glasses and an expression that suggested she had entirely lost her faith in humanity about 2 decades ago. She hammered through the docket with ruthless efficiency. She handled unpaid plumbing bills, a dispute over a broken fence, and a guy suing his ex-girlfriend for an engagement ring. She didn't tolerate rambling. She cut people off. She demanded paperwork. At 11:15 a.m., the bailiff called our case. Derek versus, he read my name. I stood up, grabbed my manila envelope, and walked through the swinging wooden gate. Derek was already standing at the plaintiff's podium, gripping the edges of the wood. I took my place at the defendant's podium. We were separated by about 10 feet of faded green carpet. The judge looked down at the file in front of her. She adjusted her glasses. All right, Mr. Plaintiff, you are seeking $5,000 for an allegedly illegal tow and emotional distress. Explain. Derek leaned into the microphone. He turned on a voice I had never heard him use. It was soft, respectful, almost victimized. Your Honor, Derek started. I moved into my apartment building and was verbally told by the landlord that the back parking lot was open to all tenants on a first-come, first-served basis. I parked my vehicle there one evening. The defendant, who has a personal vendetta against me for reasons I still do not understand, called a predatory towing company and had my vehicle illegally removed in the middle of the night. It cost me nearly $1,500 to retrieve my vehicle, caused me to miss crucial days of work, and the defendant has since harassed me to the point where I was forced to break my lease and move out of my home for my own safety. It was a masterclass in lying, smooth, rehearsed, and totally devoid of reality. The judge listened without looking up. She made a single note with her pen. Then she looked at me. Sir, did you order the tow of his vehicle? No, Your Honor, I said. My voice was steady. The police did. Derek scoffed into his microphone. That is a complete fabrication, Your Honor. The towing company receipt clearly states it was a private property impound. I have the police report right here, I said. I opened my envelope. May I approach the clerk? Hand it to the bailiff, the judge said. I handed the bailiff the official police report, my lease agreement, the photos of the sign, and the bank statements. The bailiff carried them up to the bench. The courtroom went dead silent as the judge read. She spent a good 2 minutes looking over the documents. She flipped to the second page of the police report. Her eyebrows slowly rose. Mr. Plaintiff, the judge said, her voice dropping an octave. The boredom was gone. Now she just sounded dangerous. Were you aware that your vehicle registration was expired by 18 months? Derek shifted his weight. The tailored suit suddenly looked a little tight on him. Your Honor, that is a separate issue with the DMV. It has nothing to do with the fact that he towed me from a shared lot. It is not a shared lot, the judge snapped, holding up my lease. Page 4 of this lease clearly deeds spot 14 to the defendant. There is a photographic exhibit here showing a large metal sign indicating it is private parking. The police report confirms you were parked directly beneath it. He told me I could park there, Derek blurted out. It was a panicked pivot. He told me he worked nights and I could use it. I didn't even have to defend myself. The judge looked back down at the police report. The responding officer, the judge read aloud, notes that you became combative on the scene. He notes that your vehicle had an illegal window tint of 4%, rendering it non-compliant with state law and unsafe for the roadway. The officer states he explicitly ordered the impound of the vehicle because it was trespassing, unregistered, and you were acting aggressively toward the defendant. Is this correct? Derek was grasping at straws. The officer was out of line. He had a personal relationship with the defendant. The judge set the papers down. She took off her glasses. Mr. Plaintiff, you parked an unregistered, illegally modified vehicle on someone else's rented property. When the police arrived, you argued with them. The police towed your car, not the defendant. You then filed a lawsuit under penalty of perjury claiming you were the victim of an illegal predatory tow. You lied to this court. Your Honor, the harassment. Derek started, his voice rising, the polished facade cracking. He drove me out of my apartment. He threatened me. I cleared my throat. Your Honor, I have a USB drive with video footage from my doorbell camera the morning after the tow. It shows the plaintiff coming to my door, demanding money, and telling me I am a dead man. The judge looked at Derek. Derek stared at the floor. The microphone picked up his heavy, ragged breathing. He didn't deny it. He knew there was video. I don't even need to see it, the judge said in disgust. She picked up her rubber stamp. She slammed it down on Derek's paperwork with a loud, sharp crack that echoed in the quiet room. Case dismissed with prejudice, the judge ruled. You are responsible for all your own fees, citations, and court costs. And frankly, sir, you are lucky I am not referring you to the district attorney for filing a false sworn complaint. Do not ever waste this court's time again. Step back. Derek didn't look at me. He turned around, pushed open the wooden gate, and walked fast down the center aisle. The heavy courtroom doors swung shut behind him. I collected my envelope from the bailiff, thanked the judge, and walked out. When I got down to the lobby, I bought a bad cup of coffee from a vending machine. I stood by the massive glass windows and watched the rain wash over the city streets. I didn't feel victorious, exactly. It wasn't like the movies where you pump your fist in the air. It was just a quiet, heavy relief. The exhaustion of dealing with someone who thinks the world exists only to serve them was finally gone. I took the train back to my neighborhood. I walked the 4 blocks to my apartment under my umbrella. I turned down the alley. The rain was pooling in the slight dip in the asphalt by the retaining wall. Spot 14 was perfectly empty. I went upstairs, put the manila envelope in my filing cabinet, and closed the drawer. I set my alarm, closed the blackout curtains, and went to sleep. I thought I was done with him. When a judge bangs a gavel and tells a man he is a liar to his face, you assume that is the end of the line. Normal people feel shame. Normal people retreat, lick their wounds, and try to forget the embarrassment. But Derek wasn't normal. His ego was a fragile, dangerous thing, and I had shattered it in front of an audience. I had cost him money, his apartment, and his pride. Guys like that don't just walk away, they obsess. August hit the city like a wet blanket. The heat was oppressive. The temperature didn't drop below 80 degrees even in the dead of night, and the humidity made the air feel thick and breathable like soup. The ER is always a war zone in August. The heat makes people crazy. We were dealing with a constant influx of heat stroke, dehydrated elderly patients, and the usual spike in violent trauma that happens when everyone is sweating and miserable. I was working a stretch of 4 12-hour shifts in a row. By the 3rd day, I was functioning on autopilot, entirely fueled by black coffee and sheer muscle memory. I woke up on a Thursday at 5 p.m. My alarm was screaming next to my ear. I dragged myself out of bed, drank a glass of water, and took a fast, lukewarm shower. I put on a clean set of navy scrubs, grabbed my badge and my keys, and walked out my back door to head to the hospital. I walked down the stairs to the alley. Spot 14 was empty. My car was gone. I stopped on the bottom step. My brain refused to process what my eyes were seeing. I looked at the concrete pillar. I looked at the retaining wall. I looked up at the metal warning sign. I thought, for one ridiculous second, that I had parked on the street, but I hadn't. I never parked on the street anymore. I specifically remembered pulling in the morning before, exhausted, accidentally running over a crushed soda can and putting the car in park. There was a faint dusting of dry dirt on the pavement where my tires had been. A small puddle of condensation from my AC unit was still drying on the asphalt. The adrenaline dump hit me instantly. My stomach plummeted. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. My hands were shaking. I dialed the number for the towing company listed on my sign. The same tired-sounding dispatcher answered. "Hi," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I lease a spot in the alley behind my building. Spot 14. My car is gone. Did you guys tow it?" I gave her my license plate number. I heard her clacking on a keyboard. "No, honey," she said. "We don't have it. We don't tow from that lot without police authorization anyway, remember?" "I remember," I said. I hung up. I immediately dialed 911. I told the operator I needed to report a stolen vehicle. I gave her the make, model, and plate number. She told me to stay put and an officer would be dispatched to take a report. I sat on the bottom stair in the alley. The brick wall radiated heat against my back. I looked at my watch. It was 5:45 p.m. I was going to be late for my shift. I had to call the charge nurse and explain that my car was stolen. She was sympathetic but stressed. They were already down 2 nurses for the night. I felt a crushing weight of guilt and anger settling over my chest. 30 minutes later, a patrol car pulled into the alley. It was a different officer this time. A young guy who looked like he was straight out of the academy. He got out of his cruiser holding a Toughbook tablet. "You the one reporting the stolen vehicle?" he asked. "Yes," I said. I stood up and handed him my ID and my registration card, which I keep in my wallet for exactly this kind of situation. "It was parked right here, spot 14. I have the lease for it." He took my ID and started typing on his tablet. He tapped the screen a few times, frowned, and tapped again. "Well," the officer said, looking up, "the good news is, your car isn't stolen." "It's not?" "No. It was entered into the impound registry about 2 hours ago. It was towed." I stared at him. "Towed? By who?" "The company on the sign said they didn't touch it." The officer looked at the screen. "It wasn't towed by the contracted company. It was towed by a company called Apex Recovery. They operate out of a lot over on the east side, near the old rail yard. Why would Apex Recovery tow my car from my own private deeded spot? The log says it was a private property impound authorized by the property manager. Reason listed is unauthorized vehicle, abandoned." A cold, hard knot formed in my stomach. The exhaustion evaporated, instantly replaced by a razor-sharp clarity. "Officer," I said, "I am the legal tenant. I pay for this spot. I have the paperwork in my apartment. My management company did not authorize this." "I believe you," the officer said, his tone sympathetic but bureaucratic. "But unfortunately, since it's a private impound, it's considered a civil matter now. You have to go to Apex Recovery, sort it out with them, and get your vehicle. If the tow was fraudulent, you can sue the tow company or the management company in small claims court." "I just did that," I said quietly. "Excuse me?" "Nothing." I rubbed my temples. "Can you give me the address for Apex?" He wrote the address on a slip of paper. I thanked him, walked back upstairs, and called an Uber. The east side of the city is an industrial wasteland. It's a grid of crumbling warehouses, chain-link fences, and overgrown lots full of rusted machinery. The Uber dropped me off in front of a heavily fortified compound, surrounded by 10-foot fencing topped with coiled razor wire. A faded metal sign zip-tied to the gate read, "Apex Recovery, cash only." I walked through the pedestrian gate. The smell of diesel fuel, hot dirt, and stale urine hit me like a physical wall. 2 massive Rottweilers were chained to a post near the back of the lot, barking aggressively as I approached a small, cinder-block building with a single, dirty window. I walked up to the window. It was thick, scratch-covered plexiglass. Behind it sat a massive guy in a stained gray tank top. He was eating sunflower seeds and spitting the shells into a plastic cup. He didn't look up when I tapped on the glass. I slid my driver's license into the metal tray beneath the window. "I'm here for my car," I said through the speaker grill. "It was towed illegally from my private spot 2 hours ago." The guy finally looked up. He picked up my ID ID with thick, greasy fingers, glanced at the name, and typed on a filthy keyboard. Silver Honda, he grunted. Impound fee is $350. Drop fee is $50. Storage is $50. Total is $450. Cash. I'm not paying you, I said. It's my spot. I have the lease. The tow was illegal. He laughed, a short, rasping sound. He reached under his desk, pulled out a pink carbon copy slip, and slammed it against the plexiglass. I don't care about your lease, buddy. I have a signed authorization right here. Building manager called us, said you were an evicted tenant parking on his property, and signed the slip. You got a problem? Take it up with him. $450 cash, or the car stays here and accrues $50 a day. Your choice. I leaned in close to the glass. I looked past his thick fingers at the pink slip. My eyes scanned the messy handwriting. Under Times reason for tow, someone had written Times evicted. Under Times authorized by. There was a signature. It was a sloppy scrawl, but beneath the signature, the driver had written the printed name and phone number of the person who authorized it, as required by city ordinance. The printed name was Times David Miller. The phone number was 555-832-9411. I stared at those numbers. My brain is wired to memorize patient vitals, medication dosages, and chart numbers. I have an uncanny memory for sequences. I knew that phone number. It was the exact phone number printed on the top left corner of the civil summons I had received from Derek 3 months ago. He didn't use his real name. He used the name of the police captain he had bragged about playing golf with during the first incident, but he used his real burner phone number. He probably bought a prepaid phone just for this, but had stupidly used it on his court paperwork because he didn't want the court calling his actual cell. Derek had driven to my alley, called a predatory tow company that didn't ask questions, claimed to be the landlord, forged a signature, and had my car stolen. I looked at the guy behind the glass. Print me a copy of that slip, I said. I don't print anything until you pay. I am going to the ATM, I lied. I will be back in 20 minutes. I turned around and walked out of the office. I didn't go to an ATM. I walked straight out the front gate, down the cracked sidewalk to a corner convenience store, and stood under the awning. I pulled out my phone and called the non-emergency police line. I didn't ask for a patrol unit. I asked for the auto theft division. I waited on hold for 10 minutes before a detective picked up. His name was Detective Vargas. Detective, I said, my voice cold and entirely stripped of emotion. I am standing outside Apex Recovery on the east side. My vehicle is inside. I just viewed the impound authorization slip. It was signed fraudulently by a man who does not own the property, using a fake name, but he left his registered phone number. He stole my car by using a proxy tow. There was a pause on the line. Are you sure it's not a civil dispute with your landlord? My landlord is a corporate management company, I said. The man who authorized this is a former neighbor who sued me in small claims court 3 months ago and lost with prejudice. I have the court documents showing his phone number matches the number on the tow slip. Vargas sighed. Falsifying a tow slip to remove a vehicle without the owner's consent is grand theft auto by deception. It's a felony. I know, I said. That's why I'm calling you. If I walk back in there, I'm going to have to pay a criminal $400 to get my own property back. I need an officer here. I'm on my way, Vargas said. Don't go back inside. Wait by the gate. I stood on the corner for 45 minutes. The sun started to set, casting long, bruised, purple shadows across the industrial park. I called the hospital, told them it was a police matter now, and that I wasn't coming in. I lost a day's pay. I didn't care. I was going to finish this. An unmarked, dark gray Taurus pulled up to the curb. A man in a cheap suit and a tactical vest over his shirt got out. Detective Vargas. I showed him my ID, my lease on my phone, and the PDF scan of the civil court summons with Derek's phone number circled. Vargas looked at the documents. He nodded. All right, let's go have a chat. We walked back through the gates. The Rottweilers started barking again. Vargas didn't flinch. We walked into the cinder block office. The guy in the tank top looked up, annoyed. I told you, cash only, he started. Then he saw Vargas's badge hanging from his neck. He swallowed his words. I need to see the authorization slip for the silver Honda towed from. Vargas read off my address. The guy didn't argue. He pulled the pink slip out and slid it through the tray. Vargas picked it up. He looked at the printed name, the signature, and the phone number. He looked at the court summons on my phone. Who authorized this tow? Vargas asked. A guy. The tow yard worker said defensively. He met my driver in the alley, said he was the building manager, handed him $20 as a tip, signed the slip, and told us to hook it. Your driver didn't verify his identity? Didn't ask for a business card? Didn't ask for ID? We're a tow company, man, not the FBI. A guy says he's the landlord, signs the paper, we hook the car. Well, congratulations, Vargas said flatly. Your company just participated in a felony grand theft. The man who signed this slip is not the property owner. You stole this man's car. The worker went pale. He stood up. Look, we didn't know. We thought it was legit. Release the vehicle immediately, Vargas ordered. No fees, no drop charges. If you attempt to hold this car, I will lock this entire yard down as a crime scene and impound every truck you have, pending a fraud investigation. The guy scrambled. He grabbed a set of keys off a pegboard, pushed them through the slot, and hit a button under his desk. A loud buzzer sounded, and a heavy metal side gate slowly rolled open. It's in the back, the worker said, his voice trembling. Take it. I took my keys. Vargas kept the pink slip. I'm keeping this for evidence, Vargas said. He looked at me. Go get your car. I'll follow up with you tomorrow. I walked into the dusty yard, found my car sandwiched between a wrecked minivan and a rusted pickup, and got in. It started up perfectly. I drove out of the gate. I didn't go home. I drove to the nearest diner, ordered a black coffee, and sat in a booth for 3 hours, just breathing in the air conditioning, waiting for the adrenaline to leave my system. The hammer didn't drop for 2 days. On Saturday morning, my phone rang. It was Detective Vargas. We got him, Vargas said. His voice sounded satisfied. Derek? Yeah, we pulled the subscriber information for the phone number on the slip. It belonged to a prepaid account, but he used his own credit card to buy the refill minutes online. The card matches Derek's name. We also pulled the dashcam footage from the tow truck. It clearly shows Derek standing in the alley, handing the driver a $20 bill and signing the fraudulent paperwork. I closed my eyes. What happens now? He was arrested at his new apartment at 6 o'clock this morning. morning, Vargas said. He's being charged with grand theft auto, forgery, and filing a false instrument. Since the value of your vehicle is over $10,000, it's a third-degree felony. He's sitting in county lockup right now, waiting for a bail hearing. I didn't say anything for a long time. The sheer magnitude of Derek's stupidity was breathtaking. He had escalated a petty grievance over a parking space into a felony conviction that was going to ruin his life. He would lose his job. He would spend thousands on a criminal defense attorney. He would have a felony record, all because he couldn't stand the idea that he wasn't allowed to park wherever he wanted. Thank you, detective, I said. I'll need you to come down next week to give a formal sworn statement, Vargas said. Enjoy your weekend. I hung up the phone. I walked over to my back window and pulled the curtain aside. The alley was quiet. The sun was shining. Spot 14 was perfectly empty, a clean rectangle of pavement tucked safely against the wall. I never saw Derek again. He bailed out of jail, but his lawyer ended up pleading him down to a massive misdemeanor plea deal to avoid prison time. He was put on 3 years of supervised probation, ordered to pay restitution to the city, and mandated to take anger management classes. I found all this out because the district attorney's office sent me a victim impact notification letter in the mail 6 months later. I didn't write a victim impact statement. I didn't go to his sentencing. I had nothing left to say to him. He had destroyed himself entirely on his own. I still live in the same apartment. I still work the same brutal 12-hour night shifts at the hospital. I still come home exhausted, smelling like hand sanitizer and cheap coffee, my feet aching in my shoes. But I never have to look for street parking. Every single morning, I turn down the alley. I pull into the heavy shade of the retaining wall. I shift my car into park right under the metal warning sign, and I turn off the engine, sit in the quiet for just a moment, and smile.